Hello, this is Sergio Marrero, and we're here for another episode of RBL1 Live. We have our next guest, a local entrepreneur from the Chicago community, Sergio Suarez. Another Sergio. Thanks for joining us today.
No, thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So to share a little bit about Sergio for those that don't know, he's been in the entrepreneurship space quite a while, has a depth of technical expertise, has been CTO of several startups, including Divot, and then now has been CEO for the last several years of TackleAI. And I'll turn it over to you. Can you share with the audience a little bit about what is TackleAI?
Yeah, man, thanks. Yeah, TackleAI is a company where our main focus is in discovering information on documents. And for us, it's can we process a document even if we've never seen the document? So we are able to look at healthcare documents and say, hey, we know that this is an MRI. And then because it's an MRI, we're able to pull off a whole bunch of information, like who the patient is, who the doctor is, medical record numbers, et cetera, and then populate them into electronic health record systems. But we do the same thing in finance, and we do the same thing for legal as well. And our biggest client would be the Department of Defense, where we've automated human resources. There's a really cool project that we worked on called the HR Smart Weapon. That's a really cool name for populating HR forms, but yeah, that's what we're up to.
Yeah, I feel like the DoD, their goal is to make everything sound scary, like the smart weapon.
Yeah. I was like, I love the name. It sounds so cool.
You're like, yes, we do. We shift over. No, that's amazing. And in your journey, right? It sounds very. I appreciate the way you explain that. I think AI for many folks is people are like, what do you mean by AI? Taking paper processes and making them digital for large organizations. How did you end up leading an organization that does that? Like, can you share a little bit of your story with the audience?
Yeah, sure. I became somewhat frustrated that I figured that somebody had a solution like this, and for a long time, all I wanted to do was file paperwork. But it turned out nobody wanted to file any paperwork. What they wanted to do was get the information off of it and put it somewhere else. So with invoices, I was like, why aren't people automating invoices? It was always this thing of you had to look at a piece of paper and then you had to zone it. So you had to put boxes around where the information is, so that the next time you saw the document, the quote unquote AI would be able to process it. But I'm like, as a human, I can look at this document and I know, hey, this is an invoice and this is what the total is and this is when it's due. So why don't we just do the whole thing? I kind of felt like everybody was doing it halfway. And I'm like, let's do it for real. Let's analyze the document as a person would, and then let's extract information. And that was kind of the basis of it at the beginning, was how do we extract information when people are trying to they're trying to do it but by zoning. So let's do it without zoning. Let's do a real AI. Let's really figure out what we're looking at in order to process these documents. And it's been really cool. We kind of took some really different approaches to what the market was doing. And it's helped us out a lot. I think we're way ahead of the competition right now in terms of our tech. So it's exciting.
And where did you first come across this challenge?
So I've been working with healthcare companies, like consulting, and being able to see what are their pain points. And this was a huge pain point. It was weird because what I noticed was there would be this company that would type out a bunch of stuff into a document, right? So they would type it out into, let's just say it's an MRI report. And somebody would type it and the doctor would type out the notes, and then they would send it to another hospital or a clinic. And then somebody over there would take that, email that they just got with an attachment, and then they'd have to type it in to their system. So it's like you're doing the same thing twice. So just because it was digital didn't mean that it wasn't just manually being done. So my thought process was, well, how do I get electronic health record systems or any system to communicate with another one if they don't have an API that lets them communicate? And what I noticed was that the common denominator was the paperwork. They communicate through paper. So just grab the stuff off of the paper and populate that into wherever it needs to go. And that was the premise of it. It's a way of communicating between systems without having an actual API or any kind of connection between the two systems.
Excellent. And part of what we like to do at RBL1 is highlight amazing entrepreneurs. I know we met at a Latinx mixer in Chicago, focused on connecting founders and investors. And right away, Sergio shared the story, and I said, you need to come on the live stream and share a little bit more. How and I know you do some not only work with like optical character recognition and neural networks, and some people, most people don't know commonly like what that is. How did you first get into developing and engineering?
Well, for me, I liked it at a really young age. I've always had the need to build stuff. And so I needed to learn to code in order to build things. So as a young kid, I think I was 11 years old, 10 or 11, somewhere in that area. And I went to the library and I bought, or I picked up a book called Borland C++. And I started learning to code. And then my parents, they had small businesses at a heating and air conditioning company at that time. And I would start helping them, and I'd make little programs that could calculate payroll, and other ones that could, I had taught myself algebra without knowing I had taught myself algebra. And then I started writing more and more things. Eventually they opened up restaurants, and I would do the back end for what would, keep track of all of the money, and even the point of sale systems. I'd do like an integration with that stuff. And I didn't really realize that it was like a very useful skill. Until I realized, I thought like a lot of people knew how to do it, until I realized, oh God, no, this is a unique thing for me. And one of the guys that works with us, Josh, when we were in high school. So yeah, I just kind of kept it up, continued building stuff. And it's always kind of been a passion for me.
Excellent. Yeah. And it's what I love is, you kind of walked, you talk about, originally it sounded like you were just doing it, and then you're like, wait a minute, I can make this into a business.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. I'm just doing it for fun.
And great, solving problems, great. It's like that technical expertise. I know you're in Strahlenberg, Illinois. Can you share why you picked Strahlenberg? What's the highlighting entrepreneurs everywhere in the United States? If you could share on the location of the startup and a little bit about your team.
Yeah, when we started, we're actually at 1871, and I had just finished another project, and we would all go into the city, and we had an office there at 1871, and one day I kind of looked around and realized that we were all from the suburbs. Like there was only 5 of us at that time, and we were all in the suburbs. So I'm like, maybe we should all come out here. Maybe we can go somewhere nearby. And Schaumburg was like really central to everybody. So even if we hire people from the city, it's right off of 90. You could just get in close. So we ended up in Schaumburg just because honestly it was closer for us, and I don't like 5 times cheaper. So we have these really big offices with parking and all kinds of stuff. We don't have to take the train. There's lots of food everywhere. So it just made sense with kind of the culture and stuff that we were building. And our team tended to be from the suburbs anyway. So a lot of times I would hire senior engineers. I didn't really, at the beginning, especially, I didn't hire too many like young people coming out of college. So those people tended to be, already older and living in the suburbs with their kids and stuff.
Awesome. For those that may not know, Sergio have raised more than $5 million for TackleAI, which is an amazing feat. Can you share a little bit there? We have a number of current founders and aspiring founders, right? That are part of the community. A little bit on your strategy on how did you raise 5 million? What were some of the things you did in order to make that next leap?
Yeah, I mean, it's brutal. because you're basically become a professional beggar, and you have to. I think the big thing is if you're in technology, for example, it's really focused on what you're building. If you're building something really good, people will understand it. I struggled in that we were kind of a little bit ahead of when we started Tackle. This unstructured data wasn't a term that most C-level people knew yet. They didn't even realize that it was a problem. So I think it was when raising money, I also had to educate on what the problem was. Luckily for us, what really helped us with a company like UiPath going public and getting 63x their revenue when they went public. People, oh, okay, like this is something. And I think the brutal part of raising money is saying the same thing every day, 3 times a day for months, answering the exact same questions. You already know they're coming. So sometimes someone throws you a curveball and you're not even mad. You're just like, yeah, okay, cool. I'd like to answer a different question. But it is, I always tell people when you're raising, some people are very complimentary. They're like, hey, this is amazing. Like what you're doing is great. Those people are never investing in you. Like it's not the way it goes. The people who I've always found invest when they're immediately trying to break down the reasons why not to invest. So when they're, hey, have you thought about this? And have you thought about this? Because they see you as a genuine possibility of someone to invest in. But I think a lot of times people get out of a meeting and they're like, oh, it went so great. They were so nice. I'm like, yeah, that's because they're not investing, though. So it was, I would say, yeah, with raising up the money, I think it's set up as many meetings as you can. When you're smaller, make sure you go to angels and not VCs, because VCs are much more difficult and they want a lot more control at the beginning. And when you're just starting your company, you don't really want to give that up. But then as you grow bigger, and you want to raise larger sums of money, there's kind of no way around it. The VCs, I'm lucky to have really cool VC. Cleveland Avenue, the Cast Us Fund was able to invest in us, and they're unbelievable. They kind of put their network to work for us right away, and that's something that really is really beneficial when you start working with VCs.
Excellent. And for you, I know you're close to Chicago. Can you talk a little bit about this more a higher level? What do you think we need to do to get more great entrepreneurs like you that may not be, on the coast or even right next to one of the larger cities in the U.S. Chicago's a very large city, but how do we get more access to entrepreneurs that are building great businesses, but they're not right next to cities, especially now. If you could share what you think may need to change, or do they just need to go to those places like 1871, for those that don't know, the co-working space in Chicago? Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is creating a community, right? Like it's be around other founders. That helps a lot. I think in helping one another, hey, this is something I did that didn't go well for me, and hearing other people's stories helps a lot. I think that being at 1871, being around that kind of energy was great. There's also downsides to it in that most of the people you're working with or you see are their startups aren't going to make it, and I like being real realistic with people about it, and I think that having really frank conversations and being honest with yourself when you're starting is really important. And I liked it. So whenever I go and I'm with 1871 and people always ask me for advice on what I should be doing or things like that, I tell people the truth, and then I think somebody was like, hey, I'm starting this tech company and it does this and this. And I'm like, hey, so you're tech? And like, well, no, I'm not. I just graduated college. I'm in finance. I'm like, then why are you doing a technology company? Maybe get yourself a founder along with you that knows technology, in order to do it. And instead of just telling people they're doing great and that, oh yeah, you're going to be successful. Let's really help each other out. I think with me, the Latin community is really important too. In that, we help each other. We should be helping each other out a lot more. I think in a lot of times in our culture, As someone starts doing well, I think we try to bring them back down. Like, hey, come back down here. You forgot where you came from. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot where I came from. It's way better. It's way better here than where we came from. So I think that's really important. And as far as if you don't live near a big city, there's a bunch of communities online and virtual get-togethers now. But I would try to make it a point to still go to places like Chicago, New York. Um, Austin right now is booming, and some places on the West Coast, just to be around it and be around people like that, because it is difficult to hire developers if you're like in the tech startup space if you're not in one of the major cities.
Oh, and no, that's great. What are during your journey, can you share what were some of the biggest challenges you faced in building TackleAI? Did you always know it would be healthcare companies and you were doing optical character recognition because that was where you sat, or what were some of the pivots or changes that you made along the way?
Yeah, I mean, it constantly to this day it pivots. We knew that we were able to discover information intelligently, but now, for example, one of our biggest projects is in redaction. So we redact documents for legal firms. When information needs to go, and we need to redact PHI, for example. Like, we became really good at it. Now, did we intend to do redaction? No. But since we're finding all this stuff already, right? Whenever we have to extract the information to populate it into an EHR system, we were doing it already. Then instead, just put a black box around it. So it's I would say that for us, the most challenging thing, like any startup, is finding your initial capital and then realizing it's going to go 4 times faster than you had anticipated. And when you raise larger sums, it's going to go even faster. I would say that the security, if you're in tech, security is a really big deal if you want to work with any large companies, and it's expensive. I tell people the other thing is whatever you think you're going to spend on legal, multiply it times 5, and that's what you're actually going to spend on legal. So if I could go back in time, I would have told myself those things.
Excellent. No, thanks for sharing that, the insight there. For those that, what if you want to share any other advice you would share for earlier stage founders that are preparing to launch their venture or thinking of starting a business?
Yeah, so I always tell people when you start a company, you need to start it like with the realization or the know that your company is going to succeed. Because if not, you will start to kind of half-ass stuff, right? Like, hey, maybe we don't need to do this right now, we'll do it later. But if you really think like, hey, this company is going to be generating $1 million in 12 months, work for that company, not the company that doesn't have anything right now. So I tell people, make sure you have a really good operating agreement. If you're an LLC, you will be referencing that document more than I think you care to realize. And be really careful, but do it from the beginning, because once you get investors and there's a lot more people involved, it becomes really difficult to make changes to that document. So set all that groundwork up at the beginning, and you'll save yourself an immense amount of headaches down the road. I learned that one very expensively and the hard way.
Awesome. No, I appreciate that. If you could share with the audience a little bit, what's next for TackleAI?
So we're growing really fast. We keep growing about 500% year over year. We have really big projects coming on. We have more stuff coming with the Department of Defense. We're launching a redaction product that is pretty amazing. We're able to process and redact documents under 1/10 of a second. So that lets us be able to process, millions of documents. So we're a lot faster. And then we're just hiring a bunch of people, more C# developers, more machine learning experts, more people that kind of want to think outside the box. I say you don't even need to be that good of a developer. You just need to be a really good problem solver, and we'll teach you the coding part. But coming up with the solutions is the hard part. So,
excellent. So for those trying to find Tackle AI. You could see the link in the live stream notes. Sergio, thanks for joining us today. This was Sergio Suarez, CEO and founder of Tackle AI, joining us for Breakfast with Founders, kicking off the series. So thanks again, Sergio, for your time. So thanks.
Thank you, man.